1975 was one of the heaviest years in rock history. Yet most of its hardest-hitting songs never got the recognition they deserved. 12 tracks from that year defined a genre, then quietly vanished from the conversation. Hit that subscribe button, because this channel is where forgotten giants get their due. Number 12, Dr. Doctor by UFO.
Doctor, doctor, please, can't you see the mess I'm in?
Chrysalis Records knew they had something urgent on their hands. Released as a single in 1975, this track announced UFO as one of the most ferocious hard rock acts operating in Britain at the time.
Don't you know I just can't wait? She walked up to me.
Michael Schenker's guitar tone on this recording was unlike anything on British radio. A high-gain, melodic attack that felt simultaneously accessible and genuinely heavy, cutting through the era's softer rock landscape like a blade. What made Dr. Doctor particularly remarkable was how completely it disappeared from mainstream conversation despite its presence on one of the year's most celebrated hard rock records. UFO never achieved the household name recognition of their contemporaries, yet guitarists from Michael Schenker's later work through to the entire NWO/BHM generation absorbed this track's DNA deeply. Eddie Van Halen cited Schenker's playing during this period as a direct influence on his own approach to melodic lead guitar. Dr. Doctor deserved a far larger audience than it ever received. Number 11, Man on the Silver Mountain by Rainbow. Two legends colliding in a studio was never going to produce anything quiet. Ritchie Blackmore, fresh from his departure from Deep Purple, formed Rainbow in early 1975 and immediately recruited Ronnie James Dio, then the vocalist for Elf. The debut album, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, was released in August 1975, and this opening track announced a new force in heavy rock with a riff that felt both ancient and completely modern simultaneously. The album became a foundational document for the emerging power metal genre almost immediately upon release. Dio's vocal range on this recording, particularly his upper register on the chorus, set a new benchmark for what a metal vocalist could deliver. Bands like Dio, Yngwie Malmsteen, and Helloween all drew directly from this moment. Yet despite its undeniable weight and historical importance, Man on the Silver Mountain rarely appears on lists celebrating 1975's finest hard rock moments. Number 10, Hair of the Dog by Nazareth. Released in April 1975, this track arrived on an album that also contained a soft ballad that would go on to become the band's defining radio hit. That softer song overshadowed everything around it, including one of the most viscerally aggressive hard rock songs the decade produced. The Hair of the Dog album reached number 17 on the Billboard 200. Yet the ferocious title track was consistently overshadowed by the softer material on the same record. The riff itself, anchored by Manny Charlton's distorted guitar work, became a touchstone for rock producers throughout the late 1970s and into the 1980s. Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith both acknowledged Nazareth's influence on their approach to guitar-driven aggression. Dan McCafferty's vocal delivery on this track, raw, hostile, and physically committed, remains one of the most distinctive performances in hard rock history. This song was never forgotten by the musicians it shaped, only by the mainstream audience that should have embraced it fully. Number 9. Set Me Free by Sweet. While their glam rock image drew the headlines, the studio material, Sweet, recorded in 1975, moved decisively into hard rock territory. Set Me Free, released as a single in 1975, featured a harder edge than anything in the band's earlier glam catalog. The track features Mick Tucker's driving, syncopated drum patterns and Andy Scott's saturated guitar work, delivering an aggression that casual listeners had never associated with Sweet's name. The song's commercial performance was strong in Britain, yet it vanished almost entirely from classic rock radio programming within a decade. Bands like Van Halen and Def Leppard absorbed the blueprint Sweet laid down during this period without the wider public ever connecting the dots back to the source. Set Me Free was the clearest argument against dismissing Sweet as purely a singles act, a hard-hitting track that demonstrated the band's ability to operate confidently in genuinely heavy territory. Number 8. Symptom of the Universe by Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi described the main riff on this track as the heaviest thing he had written to that point. Released on July 28, 1975 on the album Sabotage, Symptom of the Universe is now widely cited by metal historians and journalists at publications including Kerrang! And Metal Hammer as one of the earliest recorded examples of a thrash metal riff, a full decade before the genre had an official name. The song opens with an accelerated, down-tuned guitar figure that hits with a physical force entirely unlike the slower doom tempos Sabbath had built their reputation on. Sabbath recorded Sabotage under severe financial strain, battling a documented legal dispute with their former management throughout the sessions. That tension appears to have sharpened rather than dulled their creative output. The album stands today as one of the most underappreciated records in the band's catalog, and Symptom of the Universe remains its most forward-thinking moment. It never charted as a single, but its influence on every band that followed Sabbath is measurable, direct, and undeniable. Number 7. Motor City Madhouse by Ted Nugent. September 1975 was the moment Ted Nugent stopped being a cult figure and started becoming a legend. His self-titled debut solo album arrived that month on Epic Records, and Motor City Madhouse was the track that defined his entire sonic identity in under 4 minutes. The guitar tone was massive, the tempo relentless, and Nugent's playing carried a feral, high-energy intensity that made most of his contemporaries sound polished by comparison. The album reached number 28 on the Billboard 200, a genuinely strong debut performance that reflected significant underground momentum. Yet Motor City Madhouse itself, the song that opened the album and set its tone, has drifted almost completely out of classic rock radio rotation today. Nugent was 26 years old during these sessions, performing with a physical ferocity that influenced a generation of hard rock guitarists, including Ace Frehley and the early Van Halen lineup. This track deserves rediscovery on its own terms, separate from everything that came after it. Number 6. Anthem by Rush. Neil Peart joined Rush in July 1974, and by February 1975, the impact of that decision was fully documented on tape. Fly By Night, the album containing this track, was released on February 15, 1975, and Anthem was the opening statement of intent that launched the record. The song features Pert's intricate polyrhythmic drumming locked against Alex Lifeson's high-gain guitar work in a configuration that simply did not exist in rock music before this recording. The album broke into the Billboard 200 in the United States, establishing Rush as a serious international force outside their home country. Geddy Lee's vocal delivery on Anthem remains one of the most distinctive performances in hard rock history, a high, aggressive tone that divided casual listeners and captivated dedicated rock fans in equal measure.
No one else more worth living for. Backing hands are bleeding, hearts swing.
Bands from Iron Maiden to Dream Theater trace their approach to technical, riff-driven composition directly back to what Rush built in 1975. Anthem was the first proof that they were something genuinely different. Before we reach the top 5, which of these artists did you discover first? Were you a Sabbath household or a Purple household growing up? Leave your answer in the comments and keep the conversation going. Number 5, Come On and Love Me by Kiss. The Alive album, released in September 1975, eventually sold over 6 million copies in the United States alone, transforming Kiss from a cult act into one of the highest-grossing live bands in the world. But the studio version of Come On and Love Me, released on the Dressed to Kill album in March 1975, contains something the live recording slightly obscures, which is the raw, sleazy, bottom-heavy groove that made Kiss genuinely dangerous before the makeup became the main story. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley built this song on a riff that prioritized physical weight over melodic accessibility, a deliberate creative choice that aligned Kiss more closely with the emerging hard rock underground than with their pop-oriented contemporaries. The track reached number 98 on the Billboard Hot 100 as a single, a modest chart position that understated its importance to the band's development. Bands like Motley Crue and Poison identified this period of Kiss, rather than their later commercial peak, as the primary influence on their own sound. Number 4, Matriarch by Montrose. Ronnie Montrose was 27 years old when he recorded the guitar parts for the band's second album, Warner Brothers Presents Montrose, released in October 1975. Matriarch, one of the album's centerpiece tracks, features a mid-tempo, crushing guitar tone that stood apart from everything else being produced in American hard rock that year. The production gave Montrose's guitar a clarity and aggression that most producers at the time did not know how to capture cleanly. The album significantly underperformed relative to the band's debut, a commercial disappointment that contributed to the internal tensions that would soon fracture the lineup and eventually lead to vocalist Sammy Hagar's departure. Yet Matriarch in particular is a track that guitar players in the late 1970s passed around on cassette like contraband. Eddie Van Halen cited Ronnie Montrose as one of his primary guitar influences in multiple documented interviews throughout the 1970s and 1980s, and the tonal approach on this specific recording points directly toward the guitar sound that would define arena rock in the following decade. Number 3, In Trance by Scorpions. Before the power ballads, before the MTV rotation, before the stadium tours, there was this. The Scorpions released In Trance in September 1975, and the title track represented a significant evolution in the band's approach to heavy music. Guitarist Uli John Roth, who had joined the band in 1973, delivered a performance on this track that combined classical composition techniques with a distorted psychedelic guitar tone unlike anything else being recorded in Germany or anywhere else in 1975. The album built a devoted following across Europe and became particularly significant in Japan, where the Scorpions developed one of their earliest and most passionate international fan bases. Klaus Meine's vocal performance on the title track, precise, piercing, and emotionally controlled, established the template for the Scorpions' sound that would later influence Whitesnake, Europe, and an entire generation of melodic metal vocalists. In Trance is the album that serious Scorpions listeners cite as the band's creative peak, a claim that becomes entirely understandable the moment the opening riff begins. Number 2. Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith. Released in April 1975, the Toys in the Attic album arrived as Aerosmith's third studio record, and it marked a decisive shift toward a harder, faster, and less blues-influenced sound. The title track was its highest velocity moment, clocking in at just over 2.5 minutes. It opens with a drum fill from Joey Kramer that lands with the urgency of a starting pistol, followed immediately by Joe Perry's riff, a fast, descending high-gain figure that left almost no space for anything soft or decorative. The album eventually sold over 8 million copies in the United States alone, earning an RIAA 8x platinum certification, but the title track was consistently overshadowed by the album's more commercial singles. Steven Tyler was 26 years old during these sessions, and the physical energy in his vocal delivery on this specific track now reflects a band operating at a creative intensity they would rarely match again. Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue both extensively and verifiably cited 1975-era Aerosmith as their primary influence, and the title track remains the purest, fastest, and most unrelenting moment in the Aerosmith catalog. Number 1. The Wanton Song by Led Zeppelin. Physical Graffiti arrived in February 1975 as a double album containing approximately 82 minutes of material, and the sheer volume of the release allowed certain tracks to slip past casual listeners entirely. The Wanton Song, buried on the second side of the original vinyl, contains one of Jimmy Page's most aggressive, rhythmically jarring riffs, a descending, syncopated figure played with a ferocity that contrasted sharply with the epic, atmospheric compositions that dominated the album's reputation. Robert Plant's vocal performance on this track sits lower and harder in the mix than on most Zeppelin recordings, creating an almost claustrophobic intensity that makes the song feel more physically immediate than their better-known material. Jimmy Page reportedly developed the song's core riff during the band's extended recording sessions at Headley Grange in late 1974, the same residential studio where John Bonham recorded the legendary drum sound on When the Levee Breaks. Physical Graffiti debuted at number 1 on both the UK and US album charts, and yet the Wanton Song, arguably its most purely heavy moment, remains the track that even dedicated Zeppelin fans are most likely to have underestimated.